Going to have a look at the newspapers now. Aurore's with us here on set today. We've got Israel suspected of targeting Syrian weapon sites twice, of course, in 48 hours over the weekend. The regime there in Syria vowing to retaliate and is making the headlines in the Israeli press.
Absolutely, Stuart, because it seems like Israel's own red line has indeed been crossed, and according to anonymous, as you know, the target was suspected Iranian missiles going through Syria and allegedly being taken to the Hezbollah, the militant group based in Lebanon. Now, when the news broke out, according to the Jerusalem Post, some Israelis actually rushed to a pickup post to go and get some gas masks because they fear an act of revenge from the Syrian regime. They fear that because the regime is suspected of having some chemical weapons, which is allegedly using against its own people, while Israelis are worried that it's going to use it against them. Now, the article does point out, though, that it wasn't a mad rush at those pickup points, partly because some Israelis already had gas masks from previous wars, and also because some of them don't actually believe that a war will break out between Israel and Syria. Because, let's take a look at an editorial in Haaretz. It points out that Assad's regime has vowed to take revenge, but yet it hasn't really done anything so far. It says that it's unlikely to respond, first of all, because Assad knows that his army isn't as strong as Israel's, and also, says the article, because if he entered a full-scale battle, it would hasten the fall of his regime.
And meanwhile, of course, all eyes continue to be really on the US. Are they going to get involved in Syria or not? You've pulled out something from the International Herald Tribune, haven't you?
Yes, and the International Herald Tribune criticises Obama's inaction. It says that America's errors in Iraq shouldn't keep the country from doing the right thing in Syria. I quote, "The theme song at the National Security Council is, 'Won't get fooled again.' But Syria is not Iraq. No, it wouldn't be a cakewalk, and no, there's no national interest there. But inaction does make the United States less credible. It makes it look very weak to the eyes of the world. And in the meantime, the arming of the Syrian rebels is being done by, quote, fundamentalist monarchies like Saudi Arabia, for example, and therefore these weapons are more likely, it says, to fall into the wrong hands."
OK, we're going to go to another top story in the US, one that keeps on coming up, of course, gun control. All the bills discarded by the Senate, despite those mass shootings there. And now another scandal's emerged, doesn't it?
Yes, Stuart, and that's quite a worrying one, because now you can actually build your own gun, make it from a 3D printer. Now, this is the kind of printer,
this, isn't it?
It basically prints layer upon layer of metal, and therefore, in the end, you can make an object. And until now, that was only used to make prototypes, but now it's available to the general public. You can see it there on the front page of the New York Post, print and shoot, and it's also made the headlines in the British newspaper, The Independent, and it tells us that the gun's blueprint, that's kind of the recipe to make the gun, is actually available online for free, and it's worrying because you can make your own weapon. There's no trace of it, Stuart. There's no sales receipts, and there's no serial number.
And very briefly, you can also build your own bomb at home, something that apparently inspired the Boston bombers.
Yes, absolutely. Let's take a look at the Wall Street Journal. It focuses on a cleric called Anwar al-Awlaki. He was a powerful Al-Qaeda leader based in Yemen, and he frequently published propaganda videos calling to spread the jihad, and apparently he did inspire the Tsarnaev brothers. Now, this cleric was killed by US drones back in 2011, and the US did hope that his influence would die with his death, but apparently it didn't, Stuart, because I looked on YouTube and his videos are still available online.
OK, finally then, something a little bit lighter. Are you a woman? Are you planning to give birth? Don't do it in Britain, apparently.
No, don't do it in Britain. That's according to the Daily Mail. It's published a recent study made by the charity Save the Children, and it gives us a list of the world's top nations to give birth in, based on, of course, education, lifestyle and wealth and so on. And the UK is number 23, behind Estonia.
Wow.
France is number 16, and the best country to be a mum in, apparently, is Finland.
OK, so if you're planning to have a baby, go to Finland, now you know. All right, well, thanks very much. Aurore with the latest headlines, the latest newspapers, in fact, here on France 24.